Call the meeting to order.
So I am also a member of the public too. Now, I
Well,
guess.
So do we have a quorum? I don't think
yeah,
there's any votes tonight,
how are
right?
we
So,
gonna vote on minutes?
oh yeah, I don't think you can vote on minute. Well, I was a member last time. No, but I can't vote because I don't have a vote.
All right, we'll table that.
All right, table that.
So I haven't heard anything on the grant consultants or anything like that, so assuming we'll hear something by the end of the week. Then figure out how much of a time commitment we'll have to make. So I'm assuming we'll have to do some meetings with them during the day or something.
Right.
There she is. She figured out Zoom.
Hi,
I have a lot of
Jen.
issues with Zoom. Sorry, guys.
Hey, Jen.
No, you found the invite.
That too.
Welcome to back to the ESC.
Thanks.
Even though Sharon and I are members of the public now.
Well, Sharon,
yeah?
not really. You're still a commissioner. You're not really.
That's true.
And you're technically part of the subcommittee. Anyways. So what we had talked about last time was, so Jen, we've been looking at other towns' climate plans to see, what they have in them, what we can take from them, basically, so we don't reinvent the wheel. And focusing on the towns that also have MLPs and are like a similar size and demographic and all that to Wakefield. And we are focusing on business and residential information specifically because we'll have the decarbonization roadmap that looks at the municipal actions. So we're just looking at those plans for what businesses and residents can do as far as actions to reduce emissions. So each of us was assigned 2 plans to look at and to put together. I created a template to hopefully you guys saw that, kind of to guide people of what how we want to organize the information, what we're trying to look for. So it's what is the action, describe the issue or action, how to achieve it. So describe how the issue or action will be solved or addressed, and then any equity considerations, and then the resilience part of it, which we can always go back and fill that out with our MVP plan. So basically taking all the information that people have already done and then our MVP plan and putting it all together to address business and residential actions. That's the goal.
Did you say MVP plan?
Yeah, municipal vulnerability preparedness.
Okay.
So that, I mean, that plan only looks at really like resilience issues related to climate. It's not really like doesn't look at emissions at all. So.
Okay, so would you say that that covers resilience or is just a input?
No, it should, yeah. Because that, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, that plan is for town-wide. It's not just municipal operations, right?
The MVP, yeah, that is town-wide. Though I would say that it leans towards municipal.
Okay.
But it talks about things like flood zones, right? Which would bring in residential areas and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to obviously recreate that, but we do want to include it in our climate plan. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to pull anything together from the plans.
I did pull in some information today, on Wellesley and Concord. And I did have some questions as I was doing it, so maybe we could address those. Maybe that would be helpful to other people.
Yeah, did you save the file in that folder on Google or the climate plan comparable town info?
So are you in the document now?
Which document?
The climate plan topics for business and residential sectors?
I'm in my file that I created that has my name after it, in the title.
Oh, you created a separate document?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh,
If
I
you
see.
use the template, it's fine.
I just wrote into the template. Do you want me to save this, I guess, or make a copy?
Um,
Or is it say automatically saved?
yeah, it's automatically saved. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I can make a new template.
Okay,
Yeah, so I can, does everybody, I can share my screen if,
okay. So I added an introduction. I thought maybe we would want to have some like grounding statement.
yeah, I mean,
And obviously, yeah,
you
and
figured,
to make it specific to residential and commercial.
yeah,
Um, and I like the fact, and this, I stole this from Wellesley. I like the fact that it's, focuses both on reducing emissions, but also building resilience. So, to, impact. So just like, focus on not just mitigation of emissions, but also, adaptation. Feel like that there should be like some of the other plans I noticed were very light on adaptation, but since we have a lake and we have like, Breakheart and we have, we're a little bit differently situated than more urban
mhm.
big towns. So then also for each section, so like transportation, building, energy, I thought maybe we should have some kind of overarching goal for the sector and the baseline. And
Yeah, I mean, that'll be based
have,
on our greenhouse gas inventory.
And so then I had started putting stuff under business actions and residential, and I highlighted things in yellow because some of these sounded like, a lot of these sounded like municipal driven actions that would directly impact commercial businesses or residents, but not actions taken by the business or residents
So I was
directly.
getting like, I was like going back and forth on that too, because basically these plans are kind of oriented towards what the town will do to address issues within the commercial and residential sectors, basically.
Yeah,
So that's kind of how they're all set up. It's all like what the town will do.
right. And
But I was
so-
like going back and forth, like personal actions versus like what the town will do. And if I was trying to correct myself because it was hard.
right. I mean, I think that some of these actions that are kind of like, for example, educate commercial businesses about the benefits of, EVs.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think,
A lot of it will be education.
you think? I mean, I wasn't sure if this was a town action or, a business action. Because it's the town educating the businesses.
So
But
what is the action that you're talking about here? Electric vehicles?
yes,
You want to put it up here?
well, so what I did was I moved the what and the how together. So I guess there's the overarching what is the goal and the how is the action or how to achieve. So I can kind of combine those two.
So I mean, this would be like electrification of transportation, right?
Mm-hmm,
That's like the overarching what,
mm-hmm,
and then these are the strategies, how you're gonna achieve that.
mm-hmm. Well, I kind of had the strategy be the what and the A, B, the letters be kind of the action to achieve, but yeah, I mean, we can make an overarching
Yeah, I mean, I
goal.
don't think the organization of things is as important as the content right now.
Okay, yeah. But so I was getting a little bit hung up on, is this a municipality driven action or can we, you know, or is this something that, should we include municipality driven actions that directly impact or benefit businesses and residents? Like, should we include how much should we include? Is it
Well,
okay to include?
I guess it's up to us how we want to
Yeah.
orient the plan, because as I said before, most of these plans are oriented towards what the town will do to address these issues.
Mm-hmm. Because on some of these issues like energy, you're gonna have, there were lots of there weren't a lot of actions that businesses and residents could take other than implement energy efficiency measures or implement solar or storage.
Right.
There weren't a lot of, the rest was like actions driven by the MLP. So,
Mhm.
but they were, offerings of the MLP for businesses and customers. So that's, maybe I erred on the side of being more inclusive than exclusive, because if we want to like modify some of these actions and make them business and residential specific, if there's a way to do that, then we have that option.
Yeah,
So that's just
I think
so
on transportation too, and maybe this is somewhat related or somewhere just make a note of it. I think there's light duty versus heavy duty. And right now
Mhm.
there's, the technology is at different places.
Mhm.
And so we just may want to put some like, I don't know, qualifying language in there. Like, light duty is pretty well developed, but as heavy duty becomes more developed, maybe we can make the plan kind of follow the technologies. I don't know. I don't quite know how to frame it yet, but certainly this is something that's come up in the climate leader discussion around the fleet policy. And I'm actually doing a project for Mass CEC right now where we're really only focusing on light duty. So I don't know, Melissa, just maybe somewhere in there, just make a distinction. And it's probably, frankly, for every area, technologies are going to evolve. So maybe it's one statement, right?
Yeah. I mean, in some of these plans, they didn't really differentiate the actions between businesses and residents. They were kind of lumped together.
right.
So
Yeah, I
we
mean,
can make
there
that
was-
distinction more. We
Yeah.
should.
Yeah, I mean, the plans weren't kind of mapped out this way, like broken out by each sector. It's more just like it wasn't focused on the audience, I guess. It was more focused on like the action. So, I mean, I set the template up this way just so we could have it a bit organized, but obviously we don't have to, you know, organize the plan this way.
I mean, the other thing too is that I'm on the green business subcommittee for ESC, again, as a private citizen, but, you know, we're thinking through a lot of these issues kind of at a pilot program, and we may be able to use some of that language that we're developing as a pilot in here. So, Melissa, maybe one next step is to send, once we get this to a point, is to send it over to the green business subcommittee.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Make a note in our notes.
Yeah, because there's some really interesting, we met with Aaron last week.
Yeah.
There's some really interesting work being done in that subcommittee too as well.
So I'm just looking at the Massachusetts Clean Energy and Climate Plan, and they have an action to address hard to electrify modes of transportation. They're talking about ships and jets, which is not what we will be dealing with at town level. But we could like you could make a goal similar to that, modify the contents accordingly, you know.
Would you like me to walk through this or,
Yeah, let's walk through it.
okay. So the first, and so when I felt like the business and the residential actions could apply to either, I just, copied and pasted, but, you
Yeah,
know,
I kind of found myself doing the same thing, so obviously
just to
we
be,
putting them together.
yeah. So, for transportation, it was really about, you know, electrifying and shifting to EVs. So just there's a big education component. About, you know, the benefits and then also the opportunities. And then I thought this was interesting, promoting low impact transportation options. So, installing sheltered, parking for bikes and things like that. And then researching state and federal funding for a school electric school transportation vehicle to grid battery storage technology. So that's something that we have talked about at the,
Electric buses.
well, the idea of, and maybe this is something, you know, we could talk about with the green businesses. If there are businesses that would like that have fleets that would like to electrify, you know, charge in Wakefield, because our grid is so robust, there are places where they could plug in and, you know, we could pilot, you know, a vehicle to grid battery storage, you know, I don't know what the word is, but program or with a business that's interested in doing that. So it could be buses, it could be public transportation. This is something that came up at the MWIC annual conference. I don't know, Jen, do you have any?
Yeah, it's just the idea of
Okay.
having using our spaces up, probably, to be honest, by like Audubon Road. Like if we have parking lots there that are unused, actually there's probably a bunch of parking to like by the Lord Wakefield Hotel, whatever that's called. I mean, there are a lot, we have some big lots. If they're unused, like a business could use a corner of the lot with charging stations there to charge and it would be managed or managed charging, so they could get revenue from returning some energy to the grid as well. So we were just saying we could do that kind of a thing in certain locations.
Yeah,
If
isn't there that maid's business over
Mhm.
at the lakeside?
Oh, yeah,
They have a bunch of fleet vehicles parked there.
yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a huge fleet at first, but you know, if there
There's
were
a big
fleet at all-
limousine company over there too.
Yep. If there was a fleet that wanted to work on that with us, we would be interested.
And
Is that because there's a lot of power capacity
We have a
there?
lot of headroom. Yeah, we have a ton of
Okay.
headroom.
That's
And
interesting.
especially I think Audubon, that section of town, but Pete was going to provide Aaron Kakinda with specific locations that might coincide with parking areas that could be good.
right. So it's considered like an economic development opportunity for the town as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just approved the zoning overlay for self-storage there. If there's any, that's kind of that same region, right? There's any
Yeah.
parking associated with that.
I don't think it's gonna be a lot of parking, they said in their proposal, if I remember.
No, they didn't say in the
think there's-
proposal, but it's just a zoning overlay at this point. Nothing's been approved by ZBA or anybody else. Anyway, just something to think about.
Yeah, we'd have to.
Same region.
Yeah.
But I mean, are you taking into account, Jen, the big development going on there? Are we still gonna have a lot of headroom in that area with the big development?
I don't think they're thinking about that location where the storage was just approved.
Okay. Okay, good.
To
All right.
be honest.
No, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, but I think it came up more around Audubon Road.
Okay. I didn't realize there was so much capacity at Audubon. I thought there was a lot up there at the head of the lake because of the can't remember. You guys upgraded it there for the
Data
Where the data
center
center
that was,
was, right.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some areas of town where people don't want more cars and more parking. So I think we'd
Right,
have to
it's a
think
balance.
through that approach carefully.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just wanna note that idea somewhere.
well, I put it's in there under B, 2B. I mean, you can add to it.
This is tricky with the climate plan though, because these are businesses that are not necessarily in Wakefield. So these are people outside of Wakefield that could park in Wakefield overnight. It's not necessarily a
Mm.
business that is here already, like operating in town. It could be somebody located anywhere.
What do you mean?
I mean, if the corporate headquarters of Maids was in Wellesley and they thought it would be advantageous to park their vehicles overnight in Wakefield because it's closer to their customer base, that's the kind of thing we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So maybe they're parking in Wellesley now, but if they parked in Wakefield, it'd be a lot closer to
Right.
what they
But-
want to do.
But I think,
Even
Do
if their
we
home
care?
base is not Wakefield, they still have a location in Wakefield. That's what we care about, right?
They would not be currently in our emissions. We'd be adding them they wouldn't be in the baseline.
I mean, their vehicles are already parked in Wakefield.
No, we're talking about vehicles that are not necessarily currently parked in Wakefield. That's what I think. This is like a business opportunity to bring companies into Wakefield that are not necessarily currently already here.
Oh.
So this may be outside of the scope of what you're trying to do in the immediate term with this document.
Yeah, I think so.
And I don't know that it's like a climate solution for Wakefield's emission, like in terms of Wakefield's emissions. I think
No,
it's a broader net.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it might be if there's like a regional approach or something, but I don't think we need to deal with this on the Wakefield one.
I mean, I think the key piece of it though is that if we have a vehicle to grid program, that's an incentive program for people to manage charging, right? That would be part of this to reduce like peak emissions and things like that. That can be
I
used
mean,
by the water
Right,
company.
but it still could be helpful to those businesses that already exist in Wakefield that, I mean, even if the business is based in Wellesley, if they do have vehicles on the ground in Wakefield, it would reduce
It could be,
emissions.
yeah, when we were brainstorming, we couldn't think of any big fleets that are actually currently in Wakefield. Like we were thinking about, do we have a bus fleet? Do we have, right? A lot of stuff we outsource out. We just couldn't identify a big fleet that's actually an existing business.
That's an existing business, correct?
Right. So I think that's the thing. Like if somebody has a good idea about that, great. But we couldn't
and were
in
you
our
thinking about putting like solar panels on existing carports and car garages as part of this too? Or just like using just power that's available?
I mean, I think what we were starting with is trying to figure out what fleets of vehicles actually exist in Wakefield.
Okay.
Right.
Besides the town.
Or even I mean, we started within the town. Like, do we have a UPS, right? Like a postal service fleet? No.
Like town owned.
Gosh, it's right on the line in Linfield.
No, we were talking about private, Melissa. It's not town owned. We're talking about private companies.
Okay.
Like, do we have car dealerships where there's a bunch of cars parked? You know, like what kind of vehicle fleets are here?
Yeah,
And there's not a lot, to be honest,
Right.
that we could think of.
but even though the UPS business is not in Wakefield, I mean, the depot is not in Wakefield, those trucks drive through Wakefield. And so the emissions that they would, that would be reduced if they were electrified would be beneficial to us.
Depends how you are counting your emissions. Are you counting all the emissions from everything that drives through here, even if it doesn't begin
No,
here or end here?
I'm just saying, practically speaking, if there is a fleet that's electrified, that's, you know, drives through Wakefield, that would be a benefit to us, even if we can't count it towards our own emissions
Well, that
reduction.
UPS fleet, right? I mean, they're not
Yeah.
allowed to take a right into Linfield. They take a left into
I know.
Wakefield every single morning.
Right. That's what I'm saying is like, even if we can't count that towards our emission reduction goals, it is a benefit to us. If they're
I
gonna
don't
be driving
disagree
through
with
our
that, but I
neighborhoods.
would recommend centering your climate action plan on something other than things that you can't count because they aren't in your baseline. That's all I would say.
Right,
Yeah.
Like,
right.
I agree. And I think what we're talking about is not squarely within this plan necessarily.
Well, the only other fleet is the car dealership, and I don't know how many electric vehicles they have, but
I mean, there are fleets, they're just smaller, like total temperature control is a fleet. It's just like 3 vehicles, right?
What
Mhm.
about what the heck, that heating and cooling company? That's right. I'm
the
trying to,
one,
like-
two, three.
Yeah.
128.
Yeah, they have a bunch of vehicles.
Correct. But, you know, if it might be 10 or under vehicles, right? You're not talking about a huge fleet. It's smaller, but yes, that's who we're talking about because we're really in the small business space. We're not in the like
Right,
mega industrial space here.
right. Well,
We're
that's,
talking about like delivery vehicles, right?
I mean,
For
Keith's
pizza.
Trees must have
Like we're
20
talking about
vehicles.
Uber driver, or not Uber drivers. We're talking about like food delivery. You know, like these are the things that are probably more prevalent here.
Mm.
well, you know, even if it's a smaller fleet of vehicles, you know, and it's like, maybe we can get 5, I don't know, maybe it's just, it's something. Anyhow, So then open space, okay, so then, for residential. Sorry, we got distracted there. So I put up top there some things about, I don't know if this is the town that's driving this, but assessing the vulnerability of the natural resources, developing a forest management plan, and assessing and improving Concord's tree canopy. These are all town-driven, but, will these be captured, I guess, in our decarb plan? I don't,
Hope so. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they'll be part of the decarbonization plan.
okay,
But leave them there so we make sure that we cross-check it.
okay. And so this is open space is just about, more education,
Yeah,
around, biodiversity, landscaping.
Yeah.
Practices in agriculture. Next, energy. A lot of these, if we are around, the first one I think is applicable, design and deliver outreach programs, or just in plain English, encourage the installation of solar and energy storage on residential, commercial, and institutional properties. But the next strategy is around, use of electricity rates, technology, and incentive programs. That's really under the, the department. It's not really a business,
the MLP. you
per
mean?
se, that's, actions, they're actions that businesses can take, but they're not driven by businesses. They're
Right.
programs offered to customers, commercial and residential. So I put them in here.
Yeah, I don't want to, I guess, I think the plan should be focused on what the town can do, because we can't force businesses to do things.
Mhm.
Only force the town business.
So anything that was related, an opportunity or a action that's directed to helping or businesses or residents, I put that in here. So
Yeah,
yeah.
So are you suggesting, Melissa, that a lot of this would be adopting policies at like town meeting?
the plan could include policy development.
Mhm.
I'm sure a lot of it will. So the plan, one action could be develop a policy around, energy storage or solar or whatever, to encourage more adoption.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how we get away from like the educate, because it's not like it's an action, but it's not an action that you can easily quantify the impacts of.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's much easier to quantify the impact of a policy that says these buildings have to do this, and then you can kind of quantify what the impact of that is.
Yeah.
Based on how many buildings, right, were built. Or so I just wanted to confirm if that's what we're talking about here.
But
Yeah.
I think we need I think the plan has to be kind of soft enough to get adopted, and then it will be a plan, right? It's a guidance document.
Yeah.
That then, if there is policy work that has to get done, a year over the years, then we can tell town meeting that this is consistent with the plan. But I don't want the plan not to get adopted because it's too prescriptive.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a balance. And we've already done a lot of really good things that will be part of this, right? But
And you mentioned a decarbonization plan. Is that something else or is that this?
so that's no, so the town got a grant. So there's the climate leaders plan, which you know, right, is the 2.0 of green community. So the town got a grant to develop the decarbonization plan, which is one of the main components of then applying to become a climate leader.
Isn't that the same thing as a climate plan or no?
It is, but it's only for
Municipal.
municipalities.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
So
got it.
we're focusing on, so this committee is kind of focusing on residential and business, which is less prescriptive in policy and mandated.
Yeah.
Whereas the decarbonization plan, which we'll work on under the grant, will be a little more, I don't know, will be what the municipalities expect it to do.
Oh, it'll be addressing municipal operations emissions.
Right.
That's what decarbonization roadmap will do. We're trying to put together a plan that'll address business and residential emissions and then put it together with the decarbonization plan and have a holistic plan.
We're
Yeah.
kind of thinking of it as like three,
Mhm.
you know, three legs of a stool.
Well, there's
But
probably a lot of
recognizing that we can't
overlap.
tell residents and, you know, businesses, we can kind of set up enabling policies and programs. But
Yeah.
it's a little, you know, municipalities what we have more control over.
Well, that's not necessarily true, but
Well, that's true. You're right. I mean, it is not necessarily.
I
true.
mean, in fact, a lot of our building standards, right, are in fact telling
Well, that's true. We already have the
what
opt-in, so that's
to
already
do and
that's,
how to do it. I mean,
yep.
that's kind of like what action is saying do this much by this date, right, of this type of thing.
Right. And we want to make sure that we put the right
Mhm.
enablers in to have that work.
Right.
So, Jen, are you saying that we should, I mean, obviously aim to include metrics, you know, things that we can, actions that we can measure? I think it's going to be a mix, right, of qualitative and things that can be quantitatively measured.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you get to like tree planting, it's very hard to measure that impact, but so yes, I think it will be a mix, but to the extent there can be things where you can actually like that you can measure any of it, that would be good.
Mhm. The number of trees we plant.
Well, the
even-
tree one is a great one. I mean, we don't have a lot of tree cover. And it's going to be hot in Wakefield 10 or 20 years from now if we don't get a heck of a lot more. That's
Mhm.
actually something the town could meaningfully work with WMGLD to
Yeah.
change in the next 10 or 20 years in a very big way. And it would have a huge impact on the temperature of Wakefield.
Right.
So that's a big, I think that one is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Sharon, if you had tree cover, but I know.
I have there, but it's not a business action or a residential action. I mean, I don't know, is it a business or a residential action, or is it a town action?
Well, it can be all through. I mean, it could appear in both plans.
Right. So if it's a community action, it could be all three.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, you know, the town develops their own, you know, tree program, or they work with the utility to enhance their program, or
Right.
Mhm.
they plant their own trees, you know, it's a mix.
So the Wellesley had a lot of actions around the town developing, like assessing the canopy of the town and developing a tree nursery for the town, and, you know, having a tree program. But it didn't, you know, it didn't say anything about residents or businesses participating, but we could
Well, but
act.
WMGLD did that backyard like tree planting initiative, and it was actually really popular.
Right. So
Okay,
where
so
does
you have a
that
program?
fit?
We still have a program. Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Melissa.
The utility has a tree program right now, right?
Well, they have two programs. They have one program which is for like public spaces, and then they started like a private program where people could request trees for their backyard, basically.
Yeah.
And they could help, an arborist would help them pick a good locate, make sure that the location was appropriate and help them plant it. And lots of people were interested and signed up.
Is that free?
Good question. I think so, but I think I want to say it was like 50, like it wasn't a huge
It wasn't
number.
amount. It's like a community, like you can donate to it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have a huge amount, I don't know, momentum, but we have put from the ARPA monies, like the council put a couple $100,000 into trees.
Mhm.
So there's definitely movement in this direction.
Yeah.
Plus the MLD program has been, like you said, a great success.
All right.
Do you want to add something? Like a tree planting program for residents and businesses?
I mean, I had it in my document already.
Okay, okay. And then waste, there was a lot of, there was different initiatives around food waste diversion and rescue programs. I didn't know about this one, developing a culture that minimizes single-use products and packaging, like was about legislation and advocating for
Yeah,
that. I don't think that's part of this, right?
I would say no.
Okay. So you can delete that one if you want.
I
That's
mean, that's kind of like a nice to have.
okay.
in my opinion.
Well, I mean, it's not really the businesses taking this action, it's the town kind of, taking this action that would impact.
I mean, we
businesses.
already have bylaws that address styrofoam and plastics, so we could put something, other bylaw related to single-use products.
Okay, well, you can delete that if you want.
No,
And then, then there were other programs around recycling, and we do that. I know we have very there's specific, a lot of different recycling programs that are recycled, and I'm sorry, from metals to phones to, there's a lot of different items that we, cardboard boxes.
Is waste quantified in your baseline?
yes,
And how big is it?
very small.
So maybe that shouldn't be a big focus.
No, it shouldn't be, but we should still put something in there.
Yes. Agreed.
And then the next,
I mean, water obviously is not related to emissions, but it is related to resilience. So,
right,
Well, water treatment, and there's a huge amount of energy that goes into water treatment and sanitization
true, but that's more,
and pumping. Yeah. So wasted water can be a big deal if there's a lot of waste going on.
right. But I would hope that'd be the decarbonization roadmap for the town.
Yeah. Right. That's more of a, yeah.
so the only thing that I put in here about was the efficient use of water by all community members, and then I minimizing stormwater runoff, if that's something businesses and residents can do by, you know, having water, rain barrels or whatever. I don't know how they can do that, but I thought that that's something that's important because it does affect the lake.
Yeah.
And then, buildings. I don't know, this is around incentive programs, targeting. I mean, we have now the stretch, the opt-in. So there were things that were around that goal.
Well, I mean, net zero development's different from the building.
Right, but I mean, I didn't include those items around trying to strengthen the energy, the building code for the energy. Because we already kind of have tackled that.
Right.
So these are the remaining things around. You know, energy
So-
efficiency programs and sharing information. Jen, did you say you have something?
I thought I saw somewhere in this document like building and rating and labeling
The document?
in these notes. Like building labeling and rating policies.
Oh, there is something down below about, yeah, working with realtors
Mm-hmm.
around home energy rating program and
Yeah.
disclosures.
Yeah, so it's hard to know you need to be efficient if you don't know anything about how your home performs. And I think most people don't, including myself, until I learned my home was really inefficient.
Well, that's where the energy assessments come in, right?
Yes and no. I think they're helpful, but they don't necessarily compare you to, like, a rating gives you like it's context, right? Like you're a 7 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10 or, you know,
I mean,
like,
that's what I know, like IOUs, they provide that information to their customers, like
Mhm.
comparing you to your neighbor. Like I used to get reports when I was in Somerville, like I'm this efficient compared to my neighbor, you know, reading very good, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so that's not what I'm talking about. Talking about
Your building envelope.
it's like a measure of the carbon intensity of your home, basically.
Yeah.
Anyways, there are the state is beginning to, I think, pilot programs with some of the larger utilities, and there might be an opportunity at some point for other communities to join in and have a policy that would rate the efficiency of homes and businesses.
Yeah, but is that like the thing that I was talking about? Is that something that the WMGLD has looked into?
No, because that thing that you're talking about makes a lot of people furious and isn't particularly well done.
I liked it. Made me feel
Okay.
good.
Well, good. I mean, I think the people that got good ratings might have been like happy about it, and people that didn't weren't. But either way, like there's we should look into actually labeling and disclosure policies because it is different than the utility like behavioral programs, which are just giving you a little snippets of information and getting you to like change your behavior. This is a much different thing than that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think other things in here, like having like a solar coach or an energy efficiency coach program, is definitely something we should have in here.
You probably, I guess, anything around policies, like advocating for legislation and that you want to remove those.
I'm not gonna remove anything. I want to just keep everything in here.
Okay,
And
okay.
obviously we're gonna want to go through it all and
okay.
so have all the options in there, and then we'll decide what we want to include or not. I mean, I think we should include some advocacy of like programs and policies. It's just a matter of which ones, and you know, I don't think we should completely.
I was trying to think through what policies are out there that we have not adopted that would be significant impacts.
Well,
Because we've got the commercial
PACE
PACE, right? We've adopted.
program we don't have.
We don't have the residential, but we have the commercial. Going back to talking about like understanding your home too, I mean, it makes me wonder whether we shouldn't have things like walkability ratings in town, like really thriving to hit a certain walkability rating.
There's also a thing called Green Score where it rates the green spaces in your town.
Right. I mean, some of those things that just give guidance just inherently, just by the way they're structured, are at least goalposts, right?
Well, and they also, I mean, in some ways, don't they give you feedback about like why you didn't get a better score and right things you could consider improving upon?
Right. I mean, like we're always a tree town, right? I don't know what the basis is, but
I feel like
I mean,
everybody.
sign
right
years.
outside my, there's a first sign in
I
when
think
you
it's
come into the
pretty
road.
low hanging fruit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how strict they are or anything, but there might be some that have been vetted that are good, and they let you celebrate. I think we have to celebrate some of the wins too. I always say this. It's important to celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, part of this plan, we're definitely going to have in the beginning all the things that we already do.
Right.
And showcase that. And then after that, we say these are the things that we should be doing to.
Right. And as we reach them, we'll celebrate them.
As we will?
As we reach them, we'll celebrate them.
Yes.
But we should celebrate the things we've already done, right? I mean, at
Definitely.
least elevate those.
I mean, there's other things too, like we're talking about putting in more community gardens, right? So like, I think we should think about some of the things that are already being talked about and try to push those as well. And we have a really successful community garden program. We could probably double it because probably half the people who go into the lottery each year don't get it.
I mean, I think that's definitely part of the resiliency piece.
Yeah.
Is the adaptation piece a part of this?
Is that in the MVP?
Well, the MVP is a framework. I mean, do we have an actual plan? Like we have a framework for evaluating policy and practice, but I don't know that we have a plan for resilience. If we do, I was just poking around. I couldn't find it.
It's in, we saved it in here, plans.
Maybe I just need a refresh. Yeah, this is the framework for evaluating, right? The merits of different ideas. But I don't think it's a plan in and of itself for resilience necessarily. Yeah, so it's like a tool. But I mean, it's a question that I have whether, like, we already have areas in Wakefield that I just saw a sign with an arrow pointing to New Salem that now says, be careful for flooded street. Like, that's brand new. That street is now officially always flooded. Right? So do we have, and Broadway is pretty much always flooded because the street is now higher or lower than the water level in the reservoir. So has there been talk about what to do about flooded roadways or flooded, like regularly flooded areas, or people's yards that are regularly flooded? I don't know.
I mean,
Flooding is our big issue, I think,
that's
right now.
part of the resiliency piece that we want to include in the plan.
Yeah.
So I thought this MVP was more of a plan, but it's really not. Huh?
Well, it's a, if somebody has like a policy that they want to evaluate to see if it meets the
Yeah.
town's criteria, this is the framework to evaluate it against.
But I guess, Julie, how is this MVP created?
I mean, the MVP, there was lots of public input.
Mhm.
And I think the
So the
DPW led
input
it.
was based on this structure.
Yeah.
Well, the input identified the values, right? These values
Okay.
and the
I don't know which came
organizing
first.
structure.
Yeah.
The criteria, basically.
Hmm.
Okay.
So I think in our climate action plan, we do, for each section, we should include resilience.
Yeah,
I
that's what
don't know if we need to have its own, if resilience needs to be its own section.
Well, that's why I had it. This is the template. So what,
Uh-huh.
how, equity, and resilience. So resilience is a part of each action. I mean, it may not be applicable to each action, but
I like that. Yeah.
it's noted. So, I mean, this is what I put together from very similar to what you put together, Sharon. Electric charging, conduct outreach education efforts, target large employers and institutions, connect them with funding opportunities, leverage connections with the Chamber of Commerce and the utility to work with water contractors. So this is kind of what you were talking about, Jen. So working with the large private sector interested in installing charging stations. And then, there's an equity piece with all these actions, offering discounts for employees or, ensuring that vulnerable populations are engaged in the planning process. And then, resiliency piece, this one I just put in there, like, make sure the terms are well maintained. So this would be weather extremes. And then, another one I had in here for businesses was, supporting flexible work schedules and low carbon commuting options. And I guess this is more like targeted to the business itself, but we could also, tailor this to what the town can do somehow. Because it was hard to not go back and forth, what the business can do, what the town can do. But, create incentives and awareness opportunities to transition to EVs. The town could provide, this type of guidance to businesses on how to, lower the commuting footprint. And then,
If we don't,
Yeah.
I was just thinking that, we'll have to have some actions that I guess the town would drive that are directed towards businesses and residents, because we can't make businesses or residents do
Yeah.
anything, and therefore, how would we make progress on or demonstrate progress on goals,
Yeah, I mean.
you know?
That's what I was saying before, like all these plans are, what the town can do, because you can't force, businesses besides in, putting in place policies. So yeah, so residential vehicle electrification, education, community engagement programs, increase charging stations and adopting design guidelines for charging stations and signage. So that's something the town can definitely do. Adopting regulations, enforcing policies for the EV parking spaces, parking policies to maximize efficient use of spaces. So these are all like very policy oriented. And equity considerations for residents who low income, can't afford to buy a car, don't speak English, ADA compliant, that type of thing. Those all related to equity. Yeah, and then just like low carbon transportation, so education on alternative ways to commute, run errands, using public transportation, walking, biking. I think the bike pedestrian plan is this, but it's good to include. Also, advocate for more efficiency in the transit system as well as electrification. And then open space, similar to what you had with the tree canopy, enhancing trees and green open spaces. So this is mostly related to providing education on like proper tree maintenance, removing invasive species, planting pollinator friendly plants. That's not really related to, well, I guess it's related to climate. And tree planting, creation of pocket parks, and then I mentioned the utility street program. So enhancing participation of that. And then, the resiliency piece would be, it provides shading, if the businesses were to add trees to their property for the employees, it reduces the heat island effect. So energy, installing renewable energy on site. I guess, yeah, this is more about like education and helping the business figure out how to do it, type of thing. And energy efficiency. I think the big thing with energy efficiency and both businesses and residential is building managers addressing, education of building managers and landlords is a big piece. And because we do have a big rental community, and all the buildings have, owners for businesses as well. Yeah, a lot of the residential stuff is just education, participation in the community solar program, or enhancing that program. in helping residents get energy assessments and adding energy efficiency improvements, educating landlords. And then I added this creating a home energy efficiency coaching program, which I think is something really worthwhile as an action. So
Yeah, I think on education, definitely educating people about the carbon associated with different fuels. I have learned recently how many people think their carbon is not, that natural gas does not have any carbon impact. I keep hearing about this all the time from very well-educated people. They have no idea that natural gas is a fossil fuel.
What?
Is that
natural-
because they're calling it renewable natural gas?
Because it's clean gas, yes. They said there's carbon emissions. I'm like, ugh.
green
So yeah, I
water.
think there's a big educational piece there.
Yeah,
Because a lot of people think it's great, like super great, like amazing.
no, I think an action we should have in here is coaching programs for both solar and energy efficiency.
But yeah,
And maybe we should put some things like supporting education, like curriculum, STEM, carbon, I know we talked about that on the committee.
Yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
I actually know Dave Paulson brought it up in the meeting I was at today about like how the high schools are reaching out because they're super excited by the energy park, which broke ground yesterday, by the way. Super exciting. So he was kind of talking about making sure that the high schools understood. So it made me think about curriculum.
and so I think, so Jen, are you suggesting that we might want to add something about global, like the education around global warming potential of different resources?
Yeah, like the carbon emissions, yes. Associated with like electricity versus gas versus oil. Yep. And how it might change over time. So I think people don't really
Carbon intensity.
understand that. Yeah.
I mean, that would definitely be in the plan, like as like an intro, like this is climate change. This is what is causing climate change. This is what Wakefield's contribution is. Blah blah blah.
Oh, that's surprising
What's that?
that people think that natural gas is carbon free or something.
Well, the natural gas industry has done a very good job cleaning its image,
Yeah.
but it's very misleading information and false advertising. And
The
Mm.
fossil fuel companies have been doing all along.
Yeah.
Kind
it's
of like
not
the
just-
plastic bottle industry.
Exactly.
And yep.
It's not isolated, but it's effective. It's been very effective.
Yeah, for waste, I guess I was focused on composting, and also there's like a sustainable procurement policy that businesses can also implement. That I think would be a good thing to include. And similar thing for water that you had, Sharon, and then buildings. So this is one thing that I found, I think it was in the Melrose plan. Consider requiring licensing for rental units to include energy efficiency requirements for ongoing compliance. So requiring energy audits, weatherization be implemented in rental properties and pass regular inspection during the point of leasing. Explore options to establish requirements within the rental licensing process to improve health, safety, and welfare. like a minimum level of energy efficiency upgrades, volunteer program for, landlords to join the program, and then, requiring licensing over time.
These would be voluntary,
No,
Well, this
Is-
would be like a timeline, so like first you start off with like a voluntary thing, and then you would like ramp it up over time to make it more of a.
I don't think anyone would volunteer for this. I think this is actually like this would be a change in permitting.
Um,
it might, I think this might be challenging.
yeah, I mean, it's just a bunch of ideas. We don't have to change them all. The program,
There are
like,
a fair amount, yeah, there are communities looking at this though. I mean, you have
I
to
mean, this
set,
was in Melrose's plan, so they're looking
Yes.
at it.
Yep.
Mhm.
Provide landlords with flexibility, how to comply. I think it's more around like inspections, more regular inspections of properties, I think, especially for.
If we include something like that, there should be some kind of carrot. Is there some kind of penalty if you don't comply?
I mean, this is just like the idea of the program. It's not
Uh-huh.
information about how the program will be run. It's just like implement this type of program, and then,
Right.
implementation of this plan is to develop that program and get all the details sorted out.
Okay.
but I mean, the way the programs work is you can't re-rent your unit once somebody moves out until you bring it up to compliance, whatever you determine that compliance level to be.
I mean, not necessarily. You can structure it however you want.
Okay, those are I mean, that's what I've heard, but yeah.
Mhm.
And then incentivize energy efficiency, electrification, renewable energy within the special permitting process. Strengthen requirements of special permits that incentivize and facilitate implementation of net zero measures in buildings that undergo significant renovation and new construction. I mean, this is like above the stretch code, I believe. Ensure building renovations will be allowed and encouraged to achieve the highest possible energy and emissions reductions. Yeah, home electrification, we already talked about. Yeah, that's all I got.
It's a lot.
We're making good progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the things that Sharon you had, or I have the same things.
Yeah,
Obviously,
there might be some
everybody's-
nuances. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, obviously all these plans are pretty much the same. So that's why, like, we don't need to like reinvent the wheel. We could just pick and choose what we want from each plan.
But we still have to add in like lake stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is just like the action piece from
Right.
the other plans, and then we can add our own like Wakefield information and more like resiliency pieces or however to it.
Prioritize things that are important to Wakefield. Yeah.
But this is more like a starting point of like which actions out of all the emissions categories we want to tackle and put in the plan, just based on what's already out there.
I think
Yeah,
the
so
next, oh, go ahead.
for the resilience pieces, I'm wondering whether there should be more work on like flood management.
Yeah,
And now that the high school is going to be more resilient, whether there should be a plan for how to use that very resilient building in the event of an extreme emergency,
yeah, yeah.
where it needs to become like a community center for medical supply. I don't think there's a plan to have equipment on site that would really facilitate that, but something to think about whether there should be more, whether the community should receive information on how to utilize its town buildings in the event of an emergency.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that type of thing is already in some other plan that the town has for emergencies.
It might be. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the town should identify which facilities are considered deemed critical facilities in the event of an emergency.
Yeah, it just doesn't, I don't know that these are critical facilities. I don't know that the Galvin Middle School, the community centers like the Galvin Middle School and the high school are deemed critical facilities in the way like the police station is or town hall.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if they're not included in the list, maybe they now need to be included in the list and they need to be kind of incorporated into the emergency management plan in a way that they haven't been previously.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting to know. Because in some towns, like a gas station or, that a small town that only has one gas station, that's deemed like a critical facility. But I don't know, we don't know. So that would be good to know.
Yeah, I mean, not sure that's kind of the scope of this, but yeah, definitely want to include resiliency as much as we can that's related to
Mhm.
Yeah. I think right now we're light on resilience.
We
Yeah.
should have our emergency response guy, Tom, look at it maybe once it gets closer to the end.
Mhm. Yep.
I'm sorry, you guys, I have to run.
Yeah.
So
So
is there
I guess,
anything, yeah, what do we need to do for the next steps?
yeah. I mean, it may be worth Julie looking at the plans you were assigned. I'll see if
Yep,
Stephanie-
I know, I still haven't done that. Yep, I will look at that the
just to
next
see if
time.
there's anything different that we haven't
Yep,
put in there already.
yep, got it.
And yeah, I think, doing that as the next step and then kind of we'll have to look at all the different things that we have put together, all the different templates and reduce it down to remove the duplicates, reduce it down to what we think are good ideas, good actions, and kind of have that be like a first draft of, what we want to kind of work off of as actions, and then we can work on the resiliency piece. Yeah. And then, obviously we'll be working on a decarbonization roadmap with the consultant.
Yeah, hopefully we'll know more about that at the next meeting.
So next meeting, when do we want to meet? In June. We could.
You should have a new ESC person by then. I mean, a new town council person by then too, hopefully.
Yeah. Do we want to do? Second Thursday is the ESC meeting. Do we want to do either the week after or the 17th, the 24th?
So you're thinking of Monday night?
Either like the 17th or 18th. Does that work?
Yeah, either of those work for me.
I guess Sharon, you're leaving us. This is your last.
I hate to say that because I
I mean, feel free to help us with this.
yeah, I mean, I think you are in good hands. I don't know, I'm on the fence. I really enjoyed helping on this stuff, but I also don't want to take on more than I can.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you let us know what your capacity is. That's what I'm welcome with that.
I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, do you want to still share drafts with Sharon?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can look at.
You know, has access to our Google Drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Definitely, we can do that offline.
Okay.
All right. So June 17th or 18th. Jen, what works for you?
I can do either.
All right, let's do the 18th.
7:30.
Yeah.
Is there something you want me to help with between now and then? Or
I
do you
mean,
want
I
me
don't
to?
know like how much you've looked into town climate plans and kind of seeing how they're set up, and we have them. I shared with you the Google Drive where we have them all saved. So if you want to take a look at
I'm gonna sign off. Bye.
okay, thanks, Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Sure, bye.
If you want to take a look at some of the plans just to see kind of how they're set up, that may be helpful.
Okay.
All right. We're going to adjourn.